We studied the open economy macroeconomic model, right? And we said that an open economy is one in which we are inviting to interact with the rest of the world, right? But this interaction that we're referring to is not just limited to buying and selling goods and services. It's not just about net exports or trade balances, right? We can also buy and sell assets from one another, right? Is inviting to buying and selling of assets. And the way we look at this balance of asset purchases is through what's called the net capital outflow, or NCO. So NCO is equal to the purchase of foreign assets by domestic residents minus the purchase of domestic assets by foreigners. So in other words, it is the difference between what domestic residents buy or invest in foreign assets and how foreigners buy our assets, domestic assets, right? So there are two types of investments, and we've looked at this in a previous chapter, right? So we can have foreign direct investments, and in foreign direct investments, this is the case in which the foreigner both invests and manages his investment, right? So for example, if McDonald's wants to open up a restaurant in China, then from the standpoint of China, that represents a foreign direct investment, right? Why? Because China is receiving foreign investments, right? So there is some foreigner who is investing in their assets, right? Their buildings, their capital equipment, right? So a foreigner is investing in China, but he is also going to manage his own investment, right? So McDonald's will manage its investment. Okay, so that is a form of foreign direct investment. Another way of investing is what's called foreign portfolio investment. And in this case, it's a foreigner who invests, right? But the investment will be managed by a domestic resident. So, for example, if a person from Brazil wants to invest here in America, and let's say that he buys shares in Apple Computer, right? The company Apple. Now, that investment is coming from abroad because it's coming from a Brazilian person, and he's taking his money and investing it in America. So for us, that is a foreign investment, right? But it is a foreign portfolio investment because Apple Computers is and will be managed by an American resident. Right? So Apple Computers, an American company managed by Americans. So in that case, that is a foreign portfolio investment, right? An investment that is from a foreigner, but that will be managed by a domestic resident. Okay? Now, the balance of NCO, right? This NCO will be dependent on various things. It will depend on the real interest rate paid on foreign assets, right? So if the real interest rate is higher on foreign assets, then we, as domestic residents, will want to invest in foreign assets because they're paying a higher return. Right? Another thing is the real interest rate paid on domestic assets. Okay? So if we have a high domestic real interest rate, then we'll want to keep our money here and invest in our assets, and we won't invest as much abroad. Also, perceived political risk abroad might influence our decision to invest abroad. If we perceive a foreign country to be risky because it's politically unstable, we might want to keep our money here and not invest abroad. And government policies that are inviting to ownership of assets, right? So we have a policy that is inviting to foreigners investments, then it might be that foreigners will invest more in our assets, and vice versa.